Good evening. I would like to call to order this Truth in Taxation hearing for the Richfield City Council. It is November 28th at 6:30 p.m. So first of all, I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Rodriguez, and we're going to have the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor Supple. Sorry, I didn't know I was reading it, but I can certainly read it. At the September 12, 2023 City Council meeting, the City Council adopted the 2024 preliminary property tax levy and announced November 28, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. as the date and time for the statutory Truth in Taxation public hearing. Hanover County has mailed the proposed 2024 property tax statements to property owners in Richfield, which are based upon the proposed levy, and announce the date of the public hearing. And our Finance Director, Kamud Burma, is here tonight, and she can make a presentation, and then we can take any public comment.
Thank you.
A short presentation for tonight. Good evening, everyone. This is scheduled Truth in Taxation hearing, and the Council will approve the final budget and final levy at its December 12th meeting. The Council earlier approved the preliminary levy on September 12th. That has been certified to the county. Looking at the key issues in the current year and next year, labor market still very, very competitive. COLA increase is budgeted at 3% and average step increase is at 5%. Salary and benefits together account for 70% of general fund expenses. No new debt was added to the city's balance sheet in 2023, and there isn't any new debt planned for 2024 either. Inflationary pressures continue to push goods and services prices up. That has an impact on our budget. More budget updates include that city had to increase the technology and rolling stock levy by 39% to pay for the necessary technology infrastructure and upgrades. City will receive an additional $1.35 million in local government aid next year. Current year aid is $2.04 million, and it goes up to $3.39 million next year. Some of the revenue streams have started to slow down. Next year, licenses and permits revenue is projected to be $175,000 lower than 2023. EDA levy is kept at 3.5% increase, and the total proposed levy increase is 5.89%. This slide shows 10 years of history of state aid received. State aid is an unstable revenue source. As mentioned on the previous slide, City is going to receive an additional $1.3 million in the state aid in 2024. Here is a forecast of city reserves, which is expected to be at $6.5 million at the end of 2024. Please note that City is not planning to transfer anything to the general fund out of capital reserves next year. Here is how we forecast to utilize the city's capital reserves. Annual transfers to ICE Arena and pool are planned to bring them into the positive territory. Currently, ICE Arena has a negative fund balance of $2.9 million, and pool has a negative fund balance of $148,000. No transfers to the general fund is planned in 2024. The additional LGA money is expected to bridge the gap. However, transfer may be needed to support technology and fleet upgrades. City has established a fund balance policy for the general fund with a goal of maintaining an unassigned fund balance of 40% of total general fund expenditure. This may require future transfers from capital reserves to general fund. As mentioned on the previous slide, a portion of the soil retention, no, that is for the next slide, sorry. Here is the detailed levy calculation totaling $28.3 million. The proposed levy is an increase of 5.89% over 2023 levy. And this is how the 2024 proposed levy increase compares to the past proposed levies of the city. Again, we are proposing 5.89 increase in the levy next year. The impact on average Richfield household. The average Richfield home increased in value from $308,000 to $318,000 in 2024. That is a 3.25% increase. The proposed levy increase would increase the annual tax of would increase the annual taxes by $91 on average Richfield household. If we look at the monthly number, that would be an additional tax of $7.58 per month. 2024 budget is 6.76% higher compared to 23 adopted budget and 7.02% higher compared to the 23 revised budget. The graph on this slide shows increase in city's general fund budgeted expenditure. The average increase has been 4.38% over the years. The proposed increase for the next year is 6.76%. Here is a breakdown of general fund revenue categories. City revised down 23 budget from $28.9 million to $28.8 million. General fund revenue in 2024 are budgeted at $30.89 million. This is an increase of approximately $1.9 million compared to 2023. As I noted earlier, City will get an additional $1.35 million in LGA next year. Here's the revenue pie showing different slices of City's general fund revenue. Property taxes account for 72% of the general fund revenue. This page breaks down expenses by each department. 2023 expenses have been revised down to $28.8 million. You will notice 2024 budgeted expenditure is at $30.8 million. You will notice that dollars have been budgeted for special projects line in 2024 budget column. This is in reference to the compensation and classification study that is currently underway. The study is expected to be completed by the end of this year. City plans to implement the study recommendations beginning the first quarter of 2024. Therefore, staff has included a high-level estimate of $399,000 in the budget. Here is the expenditure pie showing different slices of city's general fund expenditure. Public safety has the biggest share of the pie and includes police and fire services. Public works is next at 17% of total share. Staffing update, City added 1 new position in 2023 and no addition is proposed for 2024. Currently, in the current year, we added an HR specialist position to the administration department to support all city employees. Tight labor market forced us to hire for many positions at the top end of the pay scale. I would like to share that we are working with the city manager to add 1 more position to the finance department to manage the workload and get caught up on daily operations. Capital budget for 24, city is budgeting $7.8 million to support several projects including fleet, sewer lining, citywide meter upgrades, stormwater rehab, Donaldson Park rebuild, and 77th Street Railroad crossing. Continuing the capital budget, the total cost of equipment purchase and tap upgrade is estimated to be greater than $1.7 million. Of that, $1.2 million will be funded from the tax levy, and the difference would be funded from various city reserves, for example, IT reserves, building reserves. So that's all I had for tonight. Thanks for your time. I'm happy to follow up on any question the council may have.
Are there any questions? Councilmember Troutman.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for a great presentation. I just wondered if you could talk for a moment, the line item that said intergovernmental, and I assume those are intergovernmental loans, or I'm not, I don't have it in front of me, but I just wondered if you could talk, or intermunicipal, just talk for a moment, because it is a relatively large number, but explain to community members what that is.
On the revenue side?
On the revenue side.
Those are the different grants that we get from federal and the state and different regulatory agencies.
Is LGA included in that, or just other grants?
LGA, I want to say yes, but I'm not super sure. I would have to look at the breakdown.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other questions? I don't know if this is a question, but I wanted to point out the transfers out of the reserves to make sure that we bring the ice arena and the pool into the black, that was purposeful because we wanted to be more clear. I don't know if one of you would like to say something about that?
Mayor, council members, yes, that is correct. We are over time paying down that debt, not debt, but paying down the negative reserves in both the ice arena and the pool. The pool is going to be in the black very soon, maybe even at the end of this year. And the ice arena has a bigger gap to fill.
So basically, it's just to be more transparent about what our actual reserves are.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Finance Director Verma, for a very clear presentation. I appreciate all the work that you do. We're going to now open up the public hearing. So if anyone wishes to speak, you can come up to the podium and tell us what you'd like us to hear.
And can I just make one more comment? That
Oh, sure.
intergovernment revenue line does include the fiscal disparities dollar.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So is there anyone here that wishes to speak in the public hearing? All right. And we don't have anyone online for this meeting, so if there's no one here to speak, then I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed. Councilmember Christensen?
Yes, we now make a motion to schedule the final action on the 2024 property tax levy and 2023 revised/2024 proposed budget and proposed 2024 utility rates for the regular city council meeting of December 12th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? And for anybody that is listening or watching online, just keep in mind that this is coming up in December 12th, so if you have any input, there is time to give us input. So thank you for that. All right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? All right. We have now completed the business of the Truth in Taxation hearing. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the Truth in Taxation hearing for what date? November 28th, 2023. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? We stand adjourned, and we'll begin the council meeting at 7 p.m. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm calling to order this regular city council meeting of the Richfield City Council. It's November 28th at 7 p.m. Thank you all for attending. And if you are able, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the open forum. I'll go through the online information first to give people time to call in if anyone wishes to. So you can dial 1-415-655-0001 to participate. The meeting ID is 2631-142-7966, and the password is 1234. And it looks like there's no one currently on the line, but we have a number of people that are in the chambers that would like to speak. So just a word that open forum is meant for you to give your viewpoints to the council, and so we'll call people up one at a time. The council doesn't reply. It's not a debate format. It's more of a, you get to express what you want to say. So if you could sign in at the front, there's a paper and pencil at the microphone, and then I'll start timing when you start your remarks, and it goes for about you get 3 minutes. And we want to remind everybody that we want to have a very open and encouraging free speech, so please be respectful of your neighbors, and please remember to stick to issues and not talk about personalities. So thank you so much, and we'll start out with Rod Sather. Oh, yes, and also Councilmember Hayford O'Leary gave me a good reminder. We do have a public hearing later that has to do with the franchise ordinance for the public utilities. If you want to speak on any other issue, you need to speak during open forum, because there won't be any other public hearings. So this will be the time to do so.
That's what everybody's here for tonight, right? That's my item.
There you go. All right, thank you, Mr. Sather. You can go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Rod Sather. I live on 63rd and Thomas, and I just briefly want to speak about short-term rentals in the city of Richfield, basically Airbnbs and VRBOs. Our neighbor to the west, Edina, has the following on its website. Quote, "Does the city allow vacation rental by owners? Short-term rentals like VRBO and Airbnb are not allowed in Edina. Single-family residential properties are to be used as a residence of an owner or tenant of the unit. If the owner does not reside in the unit, a tenant may reside, but for a period of not less than 30 consecutive days." And it says, "For more information, contact the planning division," unquote. The city of Bloomington currently prohibits rentals of less than 30 consecutive days. And I believe now is the time for Richfield to establish rules and regulations for short-term rentals. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and next we have Ashley Temechko.
Good evening. I'm Ashley. I'm a resident of RPS parent and a teacher from a neighboring district. And I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude for your consideration of Astor Commons. This demonstrates a commitment you have to the inclusivity and honoring the value of all Richfield residents. This project has the potential to make a significant positive impact on the lives of many young adults in the community. I believe that fostering a more welcoming and accommodating community is essential. This is just the kind of housing that Richfield needs, and I look forward to your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Levon Garcia.
Good evening. My name is Lavon Garcia, and I've been a resident of Richfield for 12 years. I am also a member of Plymouth Congregational Church in Minneapolis, and it was there where I learned about Beacon's work with low-income supportive housing, like Astor Commons. Before I became involved with the work of Beacon, my concept of the homeless were those unfortunate people sitting on street corners with cardboard signs or who approached us when we were out on a night out downtown. It became real to me when a close relative was diagnosed with a crippling spinal disease and could no longer work. His life spiraled out of control when addictive behaviors took over, causing him to lose his home and savings. It was then that I realized that under a perfect storm of misfortune, most anyone could become homeless. My family member is doing well today thanks to the support and affordable housing he is in. I feel comforted knowing that organizations like Beacon will be working hard, bringing together people, resources, and support to make a home possible for those in need. Thank you for supporting Astor Commons.
Thank you. Next, we have Hope Hutchison.
Good evening. By the way, this pen is running out of ink. So I'm Reverend Hope Hutchison, and I serve at Richfield United Methodist Church, and I'm here tonight to speak on the behalf of the many, many congregants that I have who reside in the city of Richfield. In my work at the church and through the eyes of my congregation, we see just how necessary this kind of housing is in this area. Every day, every week, we have people coming to us and asking us for services that we're just not capable of providing. The level of support that people need in this community is quite high, so the need for affordable housing with supportive services on site is just, we see it every single day. But in my work at the church, I primarily work with children, youth, and families, and most of the children and youth that I serve at my church are neurodiverse, and most of them live here. And I hear a lot of stories about times and places that these children and their parents have been made to feel not welcome. And through this building, through approving this and making this a commitment of our city, you're showing each of their parents and their children that they are welcome here, not in spite of who they are, but because of who they are. That they will have a home here and they will be welcome here for their entire lives. The commitment of their hometown to show them that they are loved means the world to their parents, but it means the world to me as a clergy person who walks alongside them every day. So thank you so much for hearing this proposal.
Thank you. Next, we have Larry Ernster, and if you give me a few seconds, I'll get a pen that works.
You got one? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson.
Hi, I'm Larry Ernster, 6727 Elliott Avenue South. I'd like to make a comment on the micro units. Once the city accepts the initial plan for micro units and determine that it qualifies as a sacred community, I feel you lose control of that community. Now, I say this because if you read the staff report, and under policies, it says, and I quote, now this is after the plan has been approved,
Development can continue without the application of additional standards. And, it goes on, additional permitting is not required for individual micro-units. And, it goes on, the city cannot require any additional permitting, including land use and/or building permits. And the amended ordinance will state conditional use permits amendment not required. Now, it sounds to me as though you are labeling homeless encampments as sacred communities. And you're authorizing this based on the state statutes, Chapter 53, Article 11, Section 57. However, Chapter 53 of the state statutes is for industrial loan and thrift companies, banking, and does not speak to homeless encampments, micro-units, or sacred communities. The questions I have for the City Council are, why would the city authorize uncontrolled development without regard for planning, density, permeable soil, environmental considerations, or design? Question number 2 would be, this appears to be a major change in the management of housing for the city. Has the city done an environmental impact statement on this ordinance change? And question number 3, what is this going to cost the taxpayers of Richfield? So I request that you vote down the micro-unit ordinance until there's more research. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll go to Mary Best.
Good evening. My name is Mary Best, and I also live at 6727 Elliott. I'm reading these comments from Alex Asmos, though. He's also a Richfield resident. He begins, I was curious about the change in the specific TIF district mentioned in today's agenda. In summary, the developer was to receive $1.8 million, that would be 2 notes of $900,000 each, in TIF for 64 units that were built. In 2021, due to the pandemic and rising material costs, the developer pleaded to be allowed to sell half of the units at market rate instead of having to sell to income-qualified residents. City Council agreed to this concession, but then half of the units, 32, would no longer qualify for TIF. The vote today is to solidify this and bring the situation to compliance. Does the agreement return the $900,000? So, it is not necessarily a bad thing, but what it does show is the slippery slope in liberal use of TIF in any or all multifamily projects can bring. TIF does not take into account market anomalies and ultimately takes risks off of the developers and puts it on the taxpayers. Stack on top issues like Best Buy and the concessions recently approved, amongst others. And so that ends his comments about the TIF, once again. Now the next is my comments about the Truth in Taxation session. We had a couple minutes to talk about it, but all residents are really concerned about the tax increases that will be coming to pay for the spending and subsidies we were giving builders and investors to come to Richfield. Our property tax is going up 6%. The school board is adding another 6%. Currently, Richfield is paying $4 million in debt service payments alone. Richfield has one of the highest debt ratios in the state. The liberal use of TIF is adding an additional tax burden to our residents, and it all adds up. How are we balancing our monetary responsibilities? Can we as a city afford to keep spending the way we are without knowing if what we are doing is really working? Aren't we moving too quickly? Do we have actual data that residents can access and understand? We have the new dashboard, but no statistics to back up the claims on how we were doing. So my comment is just, are we really able to continue moving forward as we are with no data available to residents to see if our plans are actually working? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Has anyone called in online? All right. I'm not seeing any hands of anyone else who wishes to speak, so we'll close out the open forum. Thank you to everyone who commented and shared your opinions. Next, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the City Council work session of November 14th, 2023, the City Council meeting of November 14th, 2023, and the Special Council work session of November 11th, 2023.
I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve those three sets of minutes. Are there any additions or corrections or changes? All right, hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we've approved those minutes. Next, we move on to approval of the agenda.
I move the approval of the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion or changes that anyone wants to put forward? All right, all in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We've approved the agenda. So next we'll have two presentations. And first of all, we'll have Chair Burke from the Human Rights Commission come on up.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm here to present the annual report for the Richfield Human Rights Commission. I wanted to start off by naming the members of the commission, and thanks for their efforts and their time. Vice Chair Tyler Olson, Secretary Tim Garvey, Tiffany Bigley, Mara Glupka, Maria Anderson, Valerie Hurst Baker, Carol Kelly Onstedt, Dana Speck, Michael Zazera, and our newest member, Maya Ervasti. It's nice to have a high schooler as a member, and it's made a big difference, and she's been wonderful. So I wanted to get give some public recognition to their efforts. One thing I want to start off with is some of us attended a meeting with a representative from the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, and it was a wonderful opportunity for the Richfield Human Rights Commission members to meet other cities' commission members. And one thing that stuck out, and I came back from, and was very appreciative of, is how many other human rights commissions do not have liaisons with, from the city council, for example, and from the city staff and the school board. That other cities were quite surprised that we have such direct access to members of our local government. And to me, that's a great commentary on how well this all works out. So I want to thank you for our commission, our liaisons, and people who were there. So in the past year, we worked on a number of issues. There's ongoing effort to start up the immigration citizenship event. That has happened in the past. COVID stopped it, and we're trying our best to coordinate with the U.S. District Court to have that happen again. As the council and the mayor know, we brought forth proclamations, and we've created a proclamation template to make it easier for future commissions to generate proclamations and have some consistency. We also worked on a event for students focusing on the First Amendment. It was an essay contest. I think it was a little too new for the students of Richfield, a little too sudden. Unfortunately, we didn't have any participants, but we are going to continue next time, my understanding, and hopefully the students will take advantage of the free pizza from Pizza Luce for the winners. So hopefully they'll take notice of that. So, we do now have a subcommittee working on housing issues that is going to. We've been gathering information from different leaders in the city, focusing on housing issues, and it'll be interesting to see what the commission does in the future with those efforts. We will continue to work on racial covenants. We've had some sticking points with trying to expedite the elimination of racial covenants and making it easier for citizens to get rid of racial covenants, but that is something that the commission will work on. Again, I think one thing that I think people have appreciated is the continuation of the free legal advice clinics. We had 2 more this year. They weren't as well attended as the initial one, but we still had enough people to certainly make it worthwhile, and I'm hoping the commission will continue working on that. It was nice to have a greater diversity as far as the new commission members, and again, thank the mayor and the city council for selecting people who gave our commission greater diversity. Beyond that, take any questions if there are any questions.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Questions? Liaison Troutman?
I don't have any questions. I just have praise and gratefulness, and I'm glad that we had the opportunity to engage and learn from other human rights commissions, but I just want to remark that over the years, I'm just really grateful for the growing capacity of that commission, and particularly your leadership. We've not just with the clinics, but also with the legal kiosks, so folks can attend hearings here at the city and access legal help here. They can access legal help in the community. There are multiple events throughout the year. I'll say, as the liaison, our high school liaison, and nothing has made me more hopeful about the future than her presence on our commission. Absolutely an extraordinary young woman. And so I just want to thank all our commissioners for their great work, and just recognize your leadership is really instrumental and a part of that.
Great, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I would like to echo that thank you to you and all the rest of the commissioners, and especially for your leadership that you've extended to the group. I really appreciate it. And I have some good news, and management analyst Swanson can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you're about to get another youth commissioner that we approved at the last meeting. So you'll have 2 high school students. So we're really excited about that.
Excellent.
So thank you for all your work. And I, too, am very excited about the legal kiosks. So we want to shout that from the rooftop so people can take advantage and use it.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you so much. Next, we have Chair Keeper from the Sustainability Commission.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is Amanda Keeper. I'm the chair of the Sustainability Commission. I'll be delivering our annual accomplishments report. The Sustainability Commission is in its 4th year. I want to thank all of our commissioners who worked really hard this year. I think we had a really productive year. So our commissioners, Vice Chair Logan Tyne, Secretary Adam Burnside, and Commissioners Santwana Dasgupta, Matt DeBratz, and Craig Heinen. I also want to thank our liaisons. So Councilmember Ben Whalen is our council liaison. We have a liaison from the Community Services Commission, David Freeze Daniels. And of course, I want to thank our city's sustainability specialist, Rachel Lindholm, who does a lot of hard work to get this city's sustainability initiatives done. So we're very lucky to have her supporting the commission as well, in addition to her big workload. So the Sustainability Commission uses a work planning process, an annual work planning process. We've done that for a couple of years now, and we find that it serves two roles. One is that it gives commissioners the opportunity to volunteer their time to support staff and bring in a little bit of extra capacity to the city to get some sustainability initiatives done, because Rachel's just one person and there's a lot of great work to be done. So it provides that little bit of extra capacity. And the second thing, we find that it gives commissioners the opportunity to engage with something that they're passionate about for the city. So people join the Sustainability Commission because there's usually something that they're especially passionate about. And our work planning process gives each commissioner the opportunity to kind of adopt a project or two throughout the year to kind of get the chance to work on. So I'll just be going through some of our accomplishments from that work planning process. We had three main focus areas. The first was on community engagement, so trying to offer events and educational opportunities for Richfield residents. So probably our biggest accomplishment, and the thing we spent the most time on this year, was we're in the process of developing a sustainability guide, a digital sustainability guide for Richfield residents. So we hope for that to be completed in 2024, but we did kind of finalize a draft that we've submitted to staff, and that'll be, we hope, a good resource for residents to be able to go online and quickly find answers to their questions about sustainability in the city and what resources are available to them. Another awareness campaign, educational campaign we did was to increase homeowner awareness about emerald ash borer in the city and to help empower homeowners to take preventative action, to be able to identify ash trees in their yard and what steps they can take if they do have ash trees on their property. So we did some educational tabling at the farmers market and submitted a letter to the editor that was published earlier this month in the Sun Current with some information about what residents can do about EAB and what potential funding and other educational resources are available to them. We took some initial steps on discussing creating a sustainability recognition program. Commissioners also volunteered at the Eco Fair that was held earlier this year and led an Earth Day cleanup at Roosevelt Park. And finally, kind of the last community engagement thing we've been working on is trying to engage with local high schools to bring a youth commissioner or two onto the Sustainability Commission. We do have 2 youth commissioner spots. We've never had a youth commissioner yet. We did for a moment have one. It was a very brief moment in time. The student applied and was accepted, but then kind of decided that they didn't actually have time after all. So apparently we need to take a page out of the Human Rights Commission's book. So if you have some tips for us about how you're getting the youth engaged, we would love to know, because we're still working on it. So we have some commissioners that are going to be going to the high schools later this winter to talk to the sustainability and green teams, and hopefully we can also get a high school liaison or two, because that would be lovely. But we understand the youth are busy. Our second focus area for the work plan was protecting, restoring, and further enriching Richfield's lands and natural resources. So to that end, we have 2 initiatives that are kind of in the early stages right now. One was researching action steps to reduce plastic trash and microplastics in Richfield's land and water. And we discussed some next steps for potential actions that we might recommend to council in 2024. We also did some initial brainstorming around potentially trying to install a wildlife and pollinator-friendly planting project along the Sound Wall and Highway 62. So that was kind of, it's still a very early idea from one of the commissioners, but it's something we hope to spend a little more time talking about next year as well. Our third focus area was offering policy recommendations to City Council and staff. And so kind of the main things in this category were supporting, we received staff reports and supported staff on the climate action plan prioritization process. So we followed that pretty closely this year and supported the initiatives that were chosen for inclusion in the strategic plan. And then next year, this wasn't something that got off the ground this year, but next year we're hoping there's some more movement on the development of Richfield's tree canopy protection and replacement policy, and that's something we've been involved in, submitting a letter to council in the past, and it's something we're really interested in being engaged on. So we do hope to be more involved in being able to advise council and staff on development of that tree canopy replacement and protection policy next year. So yeah, we'll have our kind of next work planning process at the beginning of 2024, and we hope to continue in this theme, and a lot of these things we hope to keep working on. So that's all I have. Are there any questions?
All right. Thank you so much for your thorough report. Is there anyone that has anything to add? I know Councilmember Whalen was unable to be here tonight. Otherwise, I'm sure he would be talking about how wonderful you are, because he's always talking up the Sustainability Commission whenever we get together. So thank you all for all your work. And it's been just amazing watching you in action. And you've kind of got a new commission up and running that didn't exist 5 years ago. So thank you for all your work on that. Great. Is there any other comments or questions? Councilmember Troutman?
I was just going to echo your comments, Mayor, and I just remember we had coffee in Patrick 6 years ago talking about what you imagined your leadership on environmental issues in Richfield could look like. And so I just want to thank you and just lift up your work along with your colleagues, but having a very specific vision for our city and then working towards it, and then seeing that work manifested in the city and living in other people's ideas and heads and spaces. And so this room full of folks is an example of that too. So I just want to recognize that this existed in people's minds before it existed in the city. So good work.
Great. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you to the whole commission.
Thank you very much.
All right, next we will move on to the consent calendar, and I'll turn it over to City Manager Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. The consent calendar contains several separate items which are acted upon by the City Council in one motion. Once the consent calendar has been approved, the individual items and recommended actions have also been approved. No further council action on these items is necessary. On tonight's consent calendar, item A, consider approval for a temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license for the Blessed Trinity Catholic School located at St. Richard's Catholic Church, 7540 Penn Avenue South, for their 2023 annual gala, taking place December 2nd, 2023. Item B, consider the approval of setting a public hearing to be held on December 12th, 2023 to consider the renewal of the pawnbroker and secondhand goods dealer license for 2024 for Metro Pawn and Gun, Inc. Item C, consider approval of the first reading of an ordinance amendment to allow micro units as an accessory use to religious institutions, and schedule a second reading for December 12th, 2023. Item D, consider a modification to the Tax Increment Financing Plan, Tax Increment Financing District 2018-1, RF64, withdrawing parcels from the district. Item E, consider a resolution designating the existing structure at 500 78th Street East as structurally substandard within the Richfield redevelopment project area. And I submit these items for your consideration as part of the consent calendar.
Thank you. I had a procedural question. There were a number of questions raised during open forum about item C, about the micro units, and since this is a first reading, that means that there will be time to have those addressed at our next meeting before the second reading. Is that accurate?
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay, so we'll come back to that when we get to it for the second reading. Then, is there a motion here?
I'd move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I did have one clarification. It was mentioned in open forum about, I believe it was item D, about the tax increment financing. could staff clarify so how that worked, just briefly, so we know before we vote?
Yes, Mayor. We have Community Development Director Melissa Palman here, who has more details than I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I believe the question was about whether or not some of the tax increment promised as part of the contract would be refunded. And in this case, the note was never issued. The developer does, in fact, take the risk on when a pay-go note is issued. If the project does not go forward, there is no note issued and no increment is generated and given to the applicant. So there's nothing to be recouped here. The note will not be issued. Those units will just simply come on the tax rolls like any other non-subsidized development.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on the consent calendar? Councilmember Hayford O'Leary?
Just to confirm on that item, so they did receive a first note, and they built a proportionate number of income-restricted units, right? So they got half, and they did half of what they said they were going to do? Is that about right?
That is correct. The first half of the development does meet the affordability requirements, so a note has been issued. That note has begun to generate some increment, and so over the life of the district, the developer will get up to $900,000. If the district does not generate enough increment to pay them that, the city is not on the hook for that. That is just a loss for the developer.
Okay, and again, just to be crystal clear, we basically got the units that would pay for. Like,
correct.
We got the affordable units. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions? All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we've approved the consent calendar. Thank you. All right, so next we're going to move on to the public hearing, and I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Troutman.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a public hearing to consider the second reading of the proposed franchise ordinance and agreement with CenterPoint Energy Minnesota Gas, here CenterPoint Energy, allowing and setting terms for CenterPoint Energy's use of the city right-of-way. The current franchise ordinance and agreement with CenterPoint Energy expired on May 27th, 2023, but remains in effect until a new agreement is adopted or the franchise is formally terminated. The city and CenterPoint Energy wish to continue the franchise and have negotiated a revised franchise ordinance and agreement, which is attached to the staff report. The revised franchise agreement, franchise ordinance and agreement will be effective for 10 years with the option to renew for a second 10-year term. The franchise ordinance and agreement grants CenterPoint Energy the right to use city-controlled right-of-way for the installation, maintenance, and repair of gas distribution facilities, spells out the rights and responsibilities of each party to the agreement, and allows the city to impose franchise fees. The first reading of the proposed franchise ordinance and agreement took place at the October 24th, 2023 regular city council meeting. This is a public hearing, so before we vote on the recommended action, we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to the issue or to the agenda item? Nobody? Management Analyst Swanson, is there anybody online?
Mayor and Council, there's nobody online.
All right, this is a public hearing, so I just want to give folks another opportunity. Seeing nobody, I would move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed.
Then the public hearing being closed, I would move we approve the second reading of the proposed the proposed franchise ordinance and agreement with CenterPoint Energy, allowing and setting terms for the CenterPoint Energy's use of the city right-of-way And City Attorney, could we do this in one? Thank you. Approve the resolution authorizing summary publication of said ordinance.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Did staff want to add anything? All right. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we have approved both parts of the motion. Thank you. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Hayford O'Leary for item 7, which has several parts to it.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is to consider a request for a comprehensive plan amendment, a second reading of an ordinance rezoning the subject property, and approving a preliminary plat, site plan approval, and 2 variances for 38 units of affordable housing at 6613 through 6625 Portland Avenue. Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative, the applicant, is a nonprofit housing developer that specializes in developing affordable housing, supportive housing at deeply affordable levels. They have applied for land use approvals to construct a 3-story, 38-unit housing development on land owned by the Richfield Housing and Redevelopment Authority, the HRA, and located south of TNT Automotive in the southwest quadrant of 66th Street and Portland Avenue. The targeted clientele of the project is neurodiverse young adults. A portion of the ground level would provide common areas and supportive services. All 38 units would be studio apartments. Half of the units would be available at 30% of the area median income, and the other half of the units would be available at 50% of the median income. Per the city's policy for land use requests that involve comprehensive plan amendments and rezonings, the applicant held a neighborhood meeting to discuss the proposed plans. Neighbors expressed concerns about building height, privacy, view sheds, crime, and traffic. In response to the neighborhood meeting, the applicant has reduced the size of the units in order to minimize the building mass, has shifted the building farther from the east property line, moved the smoking hut to the north side of the building, and offered to increase the initial size of new trees in the rear. The neighborhood meeting conversation is summarized in greater detail in the packet. And then this pertains to these items. First, the comprehensive plan. The subject property is guided currently as medium-density residential by the 2040 plan, which allows up to 35 units per acre. So that would be 21 units on this site. High-density residential allows for multifamily uses at a density of 35 to 100 units per acre. So over 22 and up to 60 on this site. Because the project is proposing 38 units, the applicant is pursuing a comprehensive plan amendment to re-guide the site from medium to high-density residential. The proposed project meets many goals of the comprehensive plan and is located in an area that is compatible with higher intensity development, and therefore staff recommends approval of this request. Second area that this pertains to is zoning. The subject property is currently zoned MR2, multifamily residential, and lies within the Veterans Park Area VPA Overlay District. The applicant is requesting a rezoning to mixed-use neighborhood as the dimensional standards therein more closely align with the purpose and intent of the VPA Overlay District. The proposed zoning is compatible with the proposed high-density residential land use designation, and therefore staff recommends approval of that request. Next area is the plat. Replatting of the property is required in order to combine 4 parcels into one development site. Of particular note in this process and in consideration of the site plan and variances requested, the size of the properties was reduced when the right-of-way was expanded for the roundabout improvements. The preliminary plat meets all requirements. Staff recommends approval of the request. Site plan. The site plan approval is required for all developments in a mixed-use district not otherwise approved by a conditional use permit or planned unit development. It is worth noting that once re-guided and rezoned, the proposed project complies with all aspects of the zoning code except 2. Staff finds the criteria have been met and recommends approval of the request. And finally, variances. The first variance request is a 32 parking stall variance from 43 parking stall requirements to allow 11 parking stalls. Or rather, a reduction from the standard of 43 to 11. The second variance is a 5-foot variance from the 15-foot front building setback requirement to allow a 10-foot building setback along the west property line or Portland Avenue frontage. In order to grant a variance, the city must find several specific criteria, which are detailed in the packet, are met. Summarizing the requirements and findings, staff find that the reduced parking need of the population to be served by the proposed development, its location on a bus rapid transit line, and previous right-of-way taking by the county justify the requests and recommend approval. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on October 23rd. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of all aspects of the request. So are there any questions prior to me making? I'm assuming we'll do 3 motions for this because they're different.
Yes, I do. I think we should have three separate motions. Councilmember Whalen sent some comments that he wanted to have read, so I think maybe before we vote, we should listen to his comments, and Councilmember Troutman's going to read those.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. And we hope Councilmember Whalen is feeling better. And he says, unfortunately, I'm sick tonight, and as it seems many people are this time of year. But I wanted to share my full support of the Astor Commons project proposal. We face a housing shortage of all kinds of housing in Minnesota, and Beacon has done great work filling some of the specific housing needs for our region. I'm proud to welcome this project and all our future neighbors to Richfield and encourage my colleagues to vote in favor of moving ahead with it.
Thank you. And then before we begin, I wanted to get some clarification from City Attorney Teachin. For the comprehensive plan vote, is it a simple majority or do we have to have 2/3?
Mayor Sepperl and Council, it does require a 4/5 vote, so you need all 4 votes. Director Paleman may be correcting me.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
My apologies, City Attorney Teachin, but because this is a vote regarding affordable housing, it simply requires a simple majority, so a 3/5 vote.
My apologies, that is correct.
So there's a difference on what part of the comprehensive plan? I've learned something new today. Thank
The
you.
difference is related to whether or not it is affordable housing.
Okay, so 3/5 vote required.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
I have some comments, but I prefer to get into it in discussion. So I would first make a motion to approve the attached resolution, changing the comprehensive plan designation for the subject property from medium-density residential to high-density residential.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, so we're open for discussion on the comprehensive plan changes. Any comments on that? Councilmember Troutman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, I feel a little emotional about this tonight. I'm a little, not that I'm surprised, but I just want to thank everybody that's here in the audience tonight. We just are full of folks that are supportive of this project, and I just wanted to share a little bit about that area of land out there. I grew up in Richfield. I'm raising the 4th generation of Richfielders here, and one of my best buddies in high school actually had a home that was right there on the corner of Portland and was taken as a part of the expansion of the roundabout. And I also remember the multiple accidents I saw at Portland. I learned to drive a stick shift in high school, trying to back out of that of Portland Avenue as a high schooler, picking my buddy up from high school. And so I just was texting with her this evening because that lot has been empty for so many years. And all of us have a childhood home. You know what it is to just look at your childhood home and just see an empty lot year after year after year after year. And now on this moment, I'm just so grateful to share this moment with everybody else. I hope this vote goes well because we're going to welcome a lot of new neighbors, a lot of people that need homes. And it's not going to be an empty lot anymore. It's going to be a place for Richfielders to have a home in our community. And so that's not a policy argument, but it's just some context that my heart's full of. And when we think about folks and who renters are in our community, I'm really grateful to be a homeowner here generation, but I have family members that are raising the 4th generation of Cordovas here in Richfield, and they've been renting for 4 generations in Richfield too. And so I just want to recognize that I think this is a great project. And it's not just homes and housing, but it's really support to make sure that all our community members thrive. And it's not a homeless encampment. And so if there's any evidence to the contrary, I'd be very interested in that. I think it's a great project, and I'm really honored to support it.
Great. Other comments, questions? I'll have more to say later, but I do think this is an appropriate amendment to the comprehensive plan. And the difference is only 3 units, so it's on the lower end of the high density. So I will be in support of this part of the resolution. Any other questions? All right, the motion before us is to approve the attached resolution changing the comprehensive plan designation for the subject property from medium-density residential to high-density residential. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we have approved the first part of the item.
All right, the next item, I will make a motion to approve a second reading of the attached ordinance rezoning the subject property from MR2 multifamily residential to MUN mixed-use neighborhood.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do we have any comments, questions, or discussion? I will say that I do think this is a good zoning change because it allows more flexibility so that we can, I believe, move the building closer to the front part of the lot. And I know that was a comment that the neighbors made, that they wanted to have space between a tall building and their houses. So it was a way that we could listen to the concerns of the neighborhood and still make the project work. So I think this is appropriate. Any other comments or questions? All right, the motion before us is to approve a second reading of the attached ordinance rezoning the subject property from MR2 multifamily residential to MUN mixed-use neighborhood. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, and then we'll move on to the third part. Thank you.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the attached resolution granting a preliminary plat, site plan approval, and 2 variances for the multifamily residential development of 38 units of affordable housing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do we have any comments, questions, or discussion? Councilmember Hafer O'Leary.
So just a few thoughts on this, and as with Councilmember Troutman, I really appreciate all the folks who have shown up today, as well as neighbors who have reached out with concerns as well. It is great to see that support, and I do support this project, and I will be voting for it. But in advance of voting in favor of it, I do want to say I've just got a little bit of disappointment on the city level of the approach that we're taking to this, and because it is so wonderful to see so many people here supporting affordable housing and supporting adding housing to our community. But most projects don't have the level of community support and the backing like Beacon can provide. And so I appreciate the flexibility we're offering with reduced parking, with reduced setbacks, but I wish we'd taken an approach of allowing that for the future projects and not simply doing an exception for this one project. This property did, in staff's opinion, and I agree with their opinion, qualify for a variance, but I want to be very clear that if any similarly modestly dense building on a corridor like this, on a site like this, came forward, I would expect us to treat it the same way, even if it was not a developer with the same wonderful community backing that Beacon has. I will also, we're voting on this project and these variances, but they did provide a rather remarkable piece of information in the packet, which is that the parking variance allows them to save $800,000, $21,000 per unit by not building underground parking. And that math applies to any apartment building of any purpose. So although I think it's reasonable to offer this flexibility here and it's justified, I want us to recognize that when we don't offer that flexibility to others, we're adding that cost in, and that cost comes out of the HRA subsidizing a project. It comes out of people's rents. That money comes from somewhere. So again, I'm a little bit wistful that we're not using this as an opportunity to address a need for transit-oriented affordable housing up and down Portland Avenue or in other locations throughout the city. That said, I think this is a great project. I think it will be a wonderful use of that site, and I think it will replace an eyesore with a community feature, so I'm glad to support it.
Other comments, questions? All right. I do want to thank everyone who's here tonight, all the neighbors that got involved in the discussion. I think because of the discussion that took place, we ended up with a better project, and so I really appreciate the fact that we had that community discussion. And I do think that one of the things that we've struggled with as a city is finding ways to have deeply affordable housing that's at 30% or less of the AMI, and this is a wonderful opportunity to provide that because that is something that's really difficult to do. So I'm happy that we've got a project that's moving forward that does have that deep level of affordability. Are there any other questions, comments? All right, then the question before us is to approve the attached resolution granting a preliminary plat, site plan approval and 2 variances for the multifamily residential development of 38 units of affordable housing. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, and we have passed all 3 parts of this agenda item. Thank you. Next, we're going to move on to item number 8, and I'm turn that one over to Councilmember Hafer-Leary as well.
All right. Thank you. This item is to consider a second reading and summary publication of an ordinance amendment to Section 40801, Subdivision 6, clarifying that escrows submitted under the point of sale program can be subject to forfeiture if improvements are not made, and to Section 40801, Subdivision 4, correcting a code reference relating to the appeals process. The city's point of sale POS program requires all single-family and two-family structures, condominiums, and townhomes to be inspected and receive a certificate of housing maintenance compliance before any transfer of ownership. Any items identified for repair in the inspection must be completed prior to transfer. In the case of non-life safety items, the city may agree to allow the ownership transfer before all items are completed if a cash escrow is submitted for the incomplete items. The buyer is then responsible for completing the work and receives the escrowed funds upon completion. Occasionally, buyers do not complete the work and property ownership transfers again without escrow funds being accessed. A review of the escrow account during the audit process identified several of these situations where ownership changed and the escrow was never accessed. The city attorney advised that the current ordinance language does not specify what the city will do with these abandoned funds and recommends a change to the ordinance and escrow agreement so that the city has the option of identifying these funds as forfeited and capturing the funds for other purposes. The proposed amendment of Section 40801, Subdivision 6, would clarify that failure to make the improvements is in violation of the code and the cash escrow amount can be forfeited to the city. The amendment also makes a technical correction to the reference in Section 40801, Subdivision 4, regarding where to find the appeals process in the city code. Does city staff have anything to add?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'll just add that while we did identify several escrows that are in place that we don't have any specific ordinance governing right now, those escrows are relatively small. We are reaching out, attempting to get those escrows returned, confirm that the work has been done. But also our new Citizen Serve software should help us to do a better job of tracking these. Right now it's very manual, that you have to remember to go look a separate place to see if there is an escrow. It should be automated for us now. So there should be less need for this. Nevertheless, it's important for us to have this in the ordinance so that we can take those funds.
Are there any questions before the motion? Okay. I will move that we approve a second reading of the amendment to Section 408 of the Ordinance Code for the City of Richfield related to the Certificate of Housing Maintenance Compliance and approve a resolution authorizing summary publication of that ordinance.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we've approved the action. Next, we'll move on to item number 9. Councilmember Christensen.
Yes, this is to consider the appointments to City Advisory Board and commissions. Terms of several City Advisory Boards and commission members are set to expire on January 31st, 2024. In addition, due to resignations, there are midterm vacancies that should be filled. The terms for Advisory Board and commissions are 3 years. The City Council directs the City Manager's Office to conduct an annual recruitment seeking applicants to fill the vacancies. This recruitment includes a press release and information on the city's website and social media platforms. Applicants were interviewed at a special work session held on November 11, 2023. To ensure a quorum at future Advisory Board and Commission meetings, the City Council should make appointments to fill vacant positions. Recognizing the importance of a functional and responsive Advisory Board of Health, ABH, especially with the recent global pandemic and civil unrest, the city is reducing the number of commissioners on the ABH to make it more likely that the commission will make quorum and will allow them to perform their work. Staff are recommending that the commission membership be reduced to 7 members with 2 additional youth commissioners. With the 2 appointments recommended to council at this meeting, the commission will be at 7 members. Does the staff have any questions?
we're available for any questions.
Seeing none, propose a motion to appoint members to fill the expiring or vacant terms on City Advisory Board and commissions referenced in the attached list.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Go ahead.
Just thank you everyone who applied and showed up and took time out of your day to talk with us and of course to serve your community. So we've got a great bunch of people on this list.
Yes, it always is very inspiring when you do those interviews and you spend all day talking to people that want to make their community better. And if you've been at the last two, this council meeting and the last one, you got to hear the reports from some of the commissions, and so you know all of the work that they're involved in. All right, any other comments or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? All right, we've appointed the members to that list. Next, I'm going to turn it back over to Councilmember Christensen for item number 10.
Yes, this is to consider a resolution affirming that Astor Commons received approvals from the city and is authorized to apply for an Environmental Response Fund grant from Hennepin County for environmental assessment. On June 20th, 2023, the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, HRA, approved a contract for private redevelopment contract with Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative, Beacon, to develop 38 affordable supportive housing units targeted at neurodiverse young adults on HRA-owned property located at 6613-25 Portland Avenue South. As part of the contract, Beacon conducted due diligence, including environmental testing through Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental site assessments, ESA. The reports identified arsenic and diesel range organics impacts that will require remediation during redevelopment. Beacon has applied to Hennepin County for funding from its Environmental Remediation Fund, ERF, grant to pay for a supplemental Phase 2 ESA in order to further define the soil impacts for management during redevelopment. The ERF application requires city approval of the project in order to be funded. Land use approvals are before the City Council for consideration at this meeting. These approvals must be granted before the Council can affirm city approval. The motion before, does the staff have any comments? Okay. The motion before us then is to, if land use approvals are granted to the project by the Council, that we approve a resolution affirming that the Astor Commons project located at 6613-25 Portland Avenue South received land use approvals and that Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative is authorized to apply to Hennepin County for an Environmental Response Fund grant.
All right, so is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right, so we had both options because we didn't want to guess what was going to happen, but we'll go with the first option since the land use approvals were granted. So are there any questions or discussion? Okay. I do have a question. It's not germane to this motion, but I was wondering if you could talk about what, after we vote on this, what the next steps are for the project.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. There are two remaining actions that will have to be taken by the city. One is the HRA. The HRA will have to agree to sell Beacon the land. We have, in theory, agreed to do that, but a public hearing will be held in December when the HRA will officially agree to sell the land now that the land use approvals have been granted. And then once the project is approved, it gets all of its funding, which could take quite some time. A final plat will need to be approved by the city council. That's generally comes when the building permits have been applied for. Often it's after construction has begun because we want to make sure we have all those utility easements buttoned up. So those are the two actions that remain for us. It's really the funding now that needs to be lined up.
Thank you. Are there other comments or questions? All right, so the motion before us is to approve the resolution affirming that the Astor Commons project received the land use approvals and that Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative is authorized to apply to Hennepin County for an Environmental Response Fund grant. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we have passed that motion. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Last meeting, we had several speakers during open forum. We had Mr. Rod Sather, who also spoke tonight, and he also addressed his concerns about short-term rentals then. I did share at that meeting, but I can briefly recap that our staff are doing research on the short-term rentals, including what other cities have in place in terms of requirements. And we're reviewing that now. We will share that with the council in preparation for our future meeting to discuss 2024 work plans. We also had Kathleen Balaban expressed concerns about the termination of the Whitecaps agreement, and we discussed those concerns. I addressed that night as well. She wanted to keep the Whitecaps, and the Whitecaps is no longer a team, unfortunately. But the agreement that we were able to negotiate with them, they pay out 2 years of the remaining lease, and we are also able to re-rent that ice, which is important and should generate revenue for the city because ice time is in demand. And she also was against delegating this decision about speed limits to a city employee, and I had explained at that meeting that that is a particular provision of state law that allows cities to set limits on local roads, and it is delegated to the city engineer, and it's done after they do a series of studies. There were also 2 people that spoke in support of Astor Commons last week. And that's all I have for my report tonight.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the city manager? All right, then we'll move on to claims and payroll.
I would move claims and payroll.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve claims and payroll. Is there any discussion or questions? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we've approved claims and payroll. Next, we'll move on to hats off to hometown hits. Councilmember Troutman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick hats off. Our family did geocaching at Wood Lake Nature Center this week. And it's just a great program. It's a great reminder of all the resources we have that our Parks and Rec program does. But it was a great occasion to get outside and enjoy Wood Lake. We also have a lot of, our city has Garmin GPS locators and a particular program in the park that kids and families can participate in. We had a great time.
Thank you. Councilmember Hayford O'Leary.
I just wanted to mention that I'm going to be on this discussion panel on Thursday talking about what Richfield's done to sort of make housing more affordable through zoning, mainly our legalizing duplexes and other changes we've made. And I'm sure I'll talk about our approval tonight as well. So that is Thursday, November 30th at 5:30 p.m. at Wandering Leaf Brewery in St. Paul. So if not more than one of you wants to go, you should go. Otherwise, if anybody listening to this wants to go, they should check it out. And if you have any ideas, by the way, of stuff I should mention on behalf of Richfield, let me know.
Thank you. Councilmember Christensen.
Yes, I'd just like to give a hats off to the upcoming the next 3 Saturdays for the indoor winter market that's happening at Veterans Park from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Thank you. And when you gave that hats off, it reminded me there was a gathering for the authors that was held at the community center last weekend, and it was really great to see all the Richfield authors there. So thank you to everybody who participated, including Councilmember Christensen. And then my last shameless plug is that applications are now open for the HRA EDA position, and they'll be open through December 15th, and you can get to go on the website to apply. So please consider applying to the HRA and the EDA. All right, is there anything else that anyone wants to add? Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.